Once again, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. As always, I am Zak, the Corruption Detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. We've got lots of information to go over today. First of all, we have a retraction and some new information about the bomb blast in Beirut. Next, we have some information about DNI Ratcliffe and the actions he's hopefully going to be taking to remove the deep state from power. Next, we have some breaking information. A New York judge has requested testimony from Julian Assange in the Seth Rich case, and we have a list of questions that are hopefully going to be asked. We also have an update on the General Flynn case and corrupt Judge Sullivan. Hopefully, he's going to be off the case very, very soon. And we have information about Ohio. Governor DeWine has tested positive for CV-19. President Donald Trump is there right now, and my friend J.R. Majewski, the Trump lawn sign guy, is probably meeting the president. At the very least, he's part of the motorcade. So we've got a whole bunch of coverage from JR on that. All right, guys, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a very brief word from our sponsor. A hiker was just rescued after being stranded in Joshua Tree National Park for 40 hours with a broken leg. Robert Ringo, he's 67 years old and from La Quinta, fell while hiking and broke his femur. He lay in the desert for nearly 2 days while relying on a diet of berries and recorded his near-death experience on his cell phone until rescuers found him. Robert is not only doing great now, but he also can't wait to get back on the trails. Situations like this is exactly why I carry the backup solar bank, especially when I'm camping and hiking. The backup solar bank provides me with an unlimited supply of energy because it's powered entirely by solar panels. I have unlimited power to my cell phone and other devices in case I need help in an emergency, including a powerful 20,000 milliamp battery and convenient wireless charging for my cell phone. You can get up to 20% off the backup solar bank by using the code in the description below. It's RedPill20. Plus, you'll get free shipping, and if you go to backupsolarbank.com or click the link in the description below or the pinned comment, you can get yours today. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today we got to talk about the bomb blast in Beirut. First of all, I want everyone to be aware that I made a mistake in editing my video yesterday. I showed a tweet from MilSpecOps Monkey, which included a screenshot claiming that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel had taken credit for this incident in Beirut. However, I also had a segment where I said I have not been able to further verify this. I accidentally edited that out. I did not include it in the video, and it looked like I said conclusively Israel had taken credit. They have not, and in fact, publicly, they've stated that they haven't. However, we have some new information here from Heshmat Alavi, my friend from Iran, and our friend Carlos Azuida, who have put together some information which shows that more than likely, it certainly was caused by someone. Now, Heshmat begins by saying that the explosion in Beirut was a deliberate and controlled blast targeting missiles and missile fuel belonging to Iran and Hezbollah. So we have already seen the videos showing the devastation and the explosion, but immediately in the aftermath of this explosion, criticism against the Iran-backed Hezbollah group following this explosion in Beirut began. Now, it says here the primary suspect is Hezbollah more than anyone else in the world, because Hezbollah uses ports and all other Lebanese government facilities in order to acquire weapons. Now, specifically, he said the term acquire weapons. The Beirut blast was an arms depot which held missiles from Iran, and first it looks like the warheads were destroyed. Now, we've seen this before, but we're going to go ahead and listen to it because you can hear the warheads going off first, because there was a series of explosions. Now, you saw there a bunch of little blasts. I said yesterday it was as if they were fireworks, and it was initially claimed that this was a fireworks factory, but evidence is pointing to the fact that it was in fact a weapons depot. Clearly, many individual explosions at the beginning. Now, Heshmat says, see the glowing orange flame? Keep that in mind. And let's take a look right there. You can see an orange flame there in the center of that initial explosion. Here's another look right there. Now, here is another view of the explosion, and you can clearly see there was a series of events that took place. Let's start that over. Now, in the aftermath of the explosion, many people were wondering, why do we have that look to it? It's white smoke right there, but then we have this secondary explosion which causes that right there, and you get a lot of red dark smoke with that hot orange flame in the center, and then you have that vaporization right there, all of that water vapor blasted out, and that causes that crazy looking dome and then the mushroom cloud in the aftermath. Now, there's confirmation that the site was indeed a weapons depot. Al Arabiya English has stated conclusively the explosion occurred in a Hezbollah arms store in the Beirut port. Now, Heshmat says there were actually 3 explosions. We had the fireworks explosion, the smoke tower explosion, and the explosion that produced the white dome of water vapor, which became that vortex ring. Now, here is the initial explosion right here. We've only got screenshots of it, but that's that smaller smoke plume right there. Then we have the second explosion, which produces the larger smoke plume. And then finally, you have that dome of water vapor right here, causing that mushroom cloud, leaving all of that other darker smoke in the center. Now, he says this is a vortex ring. So what is a vortex ring? Well, Carlos Azuita has explained it. It's actually produced by rocket fuel. HMX, also called octogen, is a powerful and relatively insensitive nitroamine high explosive chemically related to RDX. Now, if we go back to April of 2016, we have this quote here from the Times of Israel. Iran intends to produce the powerful explosive octogen for use in the warheads of its missiles and to improve their destructive and penetration power. That was a quote from Iranian Defense Minister Brigadier General Hossein Dakan. Now, remember, the glowing orange flame as the warheads exploded? Well, an explosion is the rapid release of energy. That's called detonation. You can slow down the release of energy by burning the explosive rather than detonating it. So that would be deflagration. Now, in this paper on nitramine composite solid propellant modeling from the Naval Weapons Center and produced in 1989, thinking again about octogen, the product that Iran wanted to produce, and it's also called HMX, it says when HMX is heated, it undergoes deflagration, emitting brown smoke, which is exactly what we saw yesterday. The energy released is thereby greatly reduced. Now, Carlos Azuita continued, someone took out Iran's entire supply of rocket fuel in Lebanon, and they greatly reduced the destruction by causing deflagration instead of detonation. Iran thinks it can hide weapons in civilian centers because nobody will hit them. Well, they're wrong. There are new weapons designed specifically for destroying massive weapons depots in civilian centers. The warheads were destroyed, and a fire first took out half of the octogen stock, and then the second half was taken out. Now, going back to that second explosion, note the white silos right beside the explosion, seen right here. They are still standing, even if they are severely damaged, right there. And the reason they're still standing is because most of the blast went straight up into the air. Thinking logically, when a warehouse full of explosive material goes off, should the building right beside it remain standing? No, it doesn't make any sense. Boxes next to the blasted warehouse are still in place. We've got pictures of them right here. It's impossible for an accidental explosion to go straight up into the air and not flatten buildings right beside it. People in apartments and balconies who filmed the explosion survived, and their buildings didn't collapse. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. This is right next to the scene of the explosion, and that's a lot of things that are untouched. Now, granted, the building itself is damaged, but if this was a traditional explosion that went off accidentally, you would have seen a much larger blast out instead of that blast up. Now, Azuita says, Hezbollah are experts at manipulating the press and creating deceptions. All I can talk about with any confidence is the explosions themselves. My conclusion, this was a deliberate targeting of an Iranian missile depot. The warheads and fuel were stored separately. First, the warheads were destroyed. Second, the octogen, or HMX rocket fuel, was destroyed by deflagration or extremely rapid burning in order to reduce the release of energy. As powerful as the blast effect was, it would have been much more powerful if the fuel were detonated. The fuel was destroyed in 2 batches in order to further reduce the blast effect, and most of the blast effect was directed upward, as evidenced by the fact that silos right beside the warehouse are still standing. So essentially, what I want to get through to you guys is that although Israel may have publicly stated that they didn't do this, it's pretty clear that someone deliberately took out this weapons depot, and they took it out in such a manner so that it would reduce casualties in the area because it was in a civilian center. I hope that in the future we're going to get more information about this, and it very well be that just because it has been publicly denied that other countries didn't have anything to do with this, doesn't mean that they didn't have something to do with it privately. One of those things that's probably going to come up ending out much farther in the future, and in the meantime, we're going to have to keep guessing. All right, next, we're going to be talking about DNI Ratcliffe. John Ratcliffe is in a unique position to expose everything that the deep state has been doing. And I think that many of us have hoped that that's exactly what he's going to do. And he's started. All right, he has released a lot of information that former DNI Dan Coates had previously kept under wraps. And the Gateway Pundit is begging DNI Ratcliffe to please address the deep state's actions to hide the truth through redactions and slow walking of legitimate requests for information related to Obamagate. And specifically in this instance, we're going to talk about Ty Clevenger and his goal of getting out the information related specifically to Seth Rich. And that's going to take us right into the Julian Assange testimony that's going to be coming up. Now, why is it that the deep state at the FBI, CIA, DNI, etc. are allowed to redact information regarding their crimes and slow walk all requests related to their corrupt actions regarding Obamagate? Well, up until this point, they've been in power. They have had people held over in these agencies, stopping this information from coming out because they know that it will criminally reflect back on them and their conspirators. We need someone to put a stop to this madness because Americans deserve to know the truth about this scandal. DNI Ratcliffe, you are in a unique position to bring this information out into the light. Now, time and again, people seeking justice have requested information regarding this Obamagate scandal, and time and again, their efforts have been stalled by deep state actions and they continue to be covered up. We have seen this entire Trump presidency where individuals continually ask for legit information and the information provided is either redacted or they claim it's not found or it's classified. And I know that many Americans are tired of this. Well, this past week, attorney Ty Clevenger, who's requested many documents from the FBI, the CIA, and the DNI regarding communications between former DNC employee Seth Rich and WikiLeaks, has received more responses from the FBI and the CIA basically denying his request. Now, the FBI wrote Clevenger and said that his most recent request didn't hold enough information for the FBI to address it. This is not the first time this has happened. Now, the clowns in America, they also responded and said that they would finally begin working on his request, so a little bit of movement. Now, in a recent post on his personal blog, Clevenger noted that the DNI would also not provide information that he had requested. Specifically, he said the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, now headed by former Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe, will not release documents about spying on U.S. journalists, according to a letter dated yesterday. In its response to a FOIA act, ODNI claimed that it would not even admit or deny that the records exist because they would be classified. In government speak, that means the records exist, but we're not going to search for them because we really don't want to release them. The deep state has continuously dragged their feet in meeting individual and congressional requests for information. Some documents are provided and then later they're provided in a less redacted form, but it appears all of these actions are simply to prevent immediate knowledge of the truth. They aren't for the purpose of justice, they are the purpose of covering up the deep state's crimes. Now, Bill Binney, former NSA analyst and someone who came out with proof that the information that WikiLeaks published could only have been transferred using a flash drive, said in a recent forum and noted the following in regards to information about Seth Rich, who is the suspected DNC staffer who was murdered, but some believe provided DNC emails to WikiLeaks. He said, I don't know why the president doesn't order the FBI to follow up with that and see whether that's true or not. He's not done that. I mean, if he orders them and they don't follow it, he can just simply fire them because for insubordination and hire the next guy and say release it or else. That's the way he could do it. And I think that's primarily what has to happen here because the FBI is involved involved in so much cover-up in this activity, not just in that, but in other things. They haven't followed the investigation as far as I know. But also, they are covering up a lot that they know about. The Russiagate issue and all this business, they actually helped pay for Steele at one point, and I don't know whether it was directed for the dossier or not, or for him as an agent to work for them. You know, the government needs to be ordered to do things, and if their level of management refuses, they need to be fired and just get other ones in. And finally, eventually, after you fire so many, somebody will find the cojones to take on the job and do it right, and they'll eventually comply. There is a law that makes it illegal to withhold information from individuals or entity who make legitimate requests for information from the government, and this law needs to be enforced. We've got so much corruption at the Department of Justice and all over the intel community. Basically, people just want answers. Americans don't want redactions and cover-ups. They want the truth to be told. Why is that? Well, because we know how badly we've been lied to. America has been very, very patient. We have sat through 3.5 years of President Trump's first term. We have witnessed obstruction after obstruction, cover-up after cover-up, lies after lies, and finally we are here and we're almost at the election. I've said this time and time again, we are making movement on all of these things. And although I agree with the Gateway Pundit, we need answers as soon as possible. I know that it's not possible to make that happen without major changeover in the government. We've done a lot of work to get these deep state actors out of there, but there are still many that exist. I think, honestly, it's going to take the final report and indictments from U.S. Attorney John Durham, and I can only pray that we get them sooner rather than later. We need it all before the election. Now, thinking about what it's going to take to get the truth out there, we have incredible news. A New York judge has requested testimony from Julian Assange in the Seth Rich case, and this is as a result of Fox News invoking the Hague Convention. Now, a New York magistrate judge is requesting testimony from WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in a case involving the slain DNC voter director Seth Rich. Now, U.S. Magistrate Judge Sarah Netburn has requested the international assistance in order to get that testimony. The parents of Seth Rich are suing Fox News, and Judge Netburn wants Assange to testify on Seth's role in the leaked DNC documents. Assange has repeatedly said the documents did not come from Russia, and Robert Mueller interviewed hundreds of witnesses in his anti-Trump witch hunt, but he never got around to questioning Julian Assange, who was the source of the DNC documents. Now, the parents of Seth believe he had nothing to do with the leaked documents to WikiLeaks, or at least that's what they say, and they may not like what they find out. Back on November 9th of 2016, Ellen Ratner admitted publicly that she met with Julian Assange for 3 hours the Saturday before the 2016 election, and according to Ratner, Assange told her the leaks were not from the Russians. They were coming from an internal source from the Hillary Clinton campaign. Seth Rich was murdered before the election in 2016, late at night in Washington, D.C. Now, from the Epoch Times, a federal magistrate judge in New York requested assistance from a UK court on August 5th in obtaining testimony from Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, for this U.S. civil lawsuit brought against Fox News and others by the parents of slain Democratic National Committee voter director Seth Rich. Now, Sarah Netburn requested the international assistance in accordance with the Hague Convention. The judge wrote in a memorandum for the Senior Master of the Royal Courts of Justice, in the proper exercise of its authority, this court has determined that the evidence cannot be secured except by the intervention of the English courts, and that assistance from the English courts would serve to further the international interests of justice and judicial cooperation. Now, Seth's parents, Joel and Mary Rich, sued Fox News in March of 2018, nearly a year after the network published and retracted an article entitled, "Seth Rich, Slain DNC Staffer, Had Contact with WikiLeaks, Say Multiple Sources." Now, the Riches claimed the network inflicted intentional emotional distress on them by slandering their son, and the case was dismissed in August of 2018, but the Second Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the dismissal more than a year later. The case has since entered the discovery phase, and the judge determined that Assange's testimony is crucial for determining the central dispute between the parties, whether the article was a sham, as the Riches claim, or substantially true, as maintained by Fox News. Mr. Assange, as founder of WikiLeaks, is exceptionally suited to provide testimony that might be highly relevant to the these issues. Therefore, Fox News, by and through this letter of request issued by the district court, is formally requesting the testimony of Mr. Assange for use at trial. This right here could be what cracks all of this wide open. So much of everything that we've gone through from the last couple of years rests on the idea that the Democrats say the Russians tried to hijack the election. They tried to help President Trump. They provided the emails to WikiLeaks. The only person who can answer that question is Julian Assange himself. And the only person who can put all of this information on the record through discovery, mind you, is Julian Assange. Let's take a look at a tweet from Ivan Penchikov. He has a list of the questions Fox News wants to ask Julian Assange. So what we have here is a list of 20 questions that Fox News wants to ask. So first of all, they want to know what Assange's role was in the establishment of WikiLeaks to establish his direct involvement. What was his connection with WikiLeaks in late 2016? In 2016 and 2017, did Assange have any role in the posting of tweets on the WikiLeaks Twitter profile? What was Mr. Assange's involvement in the July 22nd, 2016 release of those emails and documents from the DNC? When were those emails and documents provided to WikiLeaks? How did they obtain those DNC emails and documents? Which individuals and or entities provided the DNC emails and documents to WikiLeaks? Which individuals and or entities obtained those from the DNC? And to describe any role that Seth Rich played in obtaining those materials and providing them to WikiLeaks. Now, also, they want to know, to their knowledge, has WikiLeaks ever offered a reward for information related to a murder that occurred in the United States other than the one that occurred in relation to Seth Rich? And if so, how many times? As far as I know, this is the only one that they offered a reward for. Now, why did they offer the information for that reward? Also, why did they offer that reward for information related to the murder of Seth? They want to know if Mr. Assange has ever communicated with Seth in any manner. What was the nature and content of those communications? If Mr. Assange himself has not communicated with Seth, is Mr. Assange aware of any person affiliated with WikiLeaks that has communicated with him? And if so, who was it that communicated with Seth? And to Mr. Assange's knowledge, what was the content of that communication? Has Mr. Assange ever communicated in any manner with any other member of the Rich family, including but not limited to Aaron, Joel, or Mary? And we want to know, if so, what was the content of those communications, and if anybody else at WikiLeaks ever communicated with him, and if so, what was the content of those communications? And finally, to Mr. Assange's knowledge, did any individual or entities affiliated with the Russian Federation play any role in obtaining and or providing the information contained in the DNC leak to WikiLeaks? Now, clearly, there was absolutely zero involvement with the Russian Federation. I believe, as many of you believe, that it was all the result of Seth putting the information out there and handing that to him. There has been multiple people who have talked about this fact and said that there was something having to do with both the brothers. Allegedly. I want to say that, allegedly. Now, I believe that that is very possible. But again, this is the only way we're truly going to find out that information. And I think that this is the way that we get Julian Assange here to provide this testimony. And then once that information hits the airwaves, all bets are off. We're going to be getting a lot more information specifically having to do with everything that took place in 2016. God bless Seth Rich, and God bless his family, even if they didn't mean for this to happen. All right, we have an update in the General Flynn case, and it looks like one way or another, corrupt Judge Sullivan is soon going to be off the case. Now, Judge Sullivan has put himself in a bit of a bind. It looks like one way or another, this deep state judge is going to be off the General Flynn case. It looks like he's pretty much going to be removed one way or the other. It appears inevitable. Now, our friend Technofog tweeted yesterday, it looks like his peers in the D.C. Appeals Court have come to a couple conclusions. One possibility is that corrupt Judge Sullivan would disqualify himself for his perceived impartiality in the Flynn case. No doubt the judge is disturbed and possibly insane. Never before has the court had to deal with the crazy actions of this corrupt judge. His actions not to throw this case out are an abomination to the judicial system. Now, the other possibility is that Judge Sullivan would be deemed not biased and able to proceed, in which case Judge Sullivan will have to be removed from the case due to a bias, and another judge would have to take take over. Either way, it looks like we may soon see Judge Sullivan no longer on the case. There are more corrupt judges in D.C., though, so this charade of justice might not be over. But the fact of the matter is, the DOJ has requested that everything be dropped. If another judge is appointed, and they do the exact same thing as Judge Sullivan, they're going to end up right before the appeals court again, and the appeals court is going to ask them once more what their problem is. Let's take a look at the actual tweet from Technofog. So, talked about this earlier on Occam's Razor with Methods. Judge Sullivan and Sidney Powell and the defense team for General Flynn are ordered to appear before the appeals court on the 11th, and they need to argue whether Judge Sullivan should disqualify himself for perceived impartiality. The answer is clearly yes on that. Or number two, if Sullivan should disqualify himself as a party to the proceeding, and the answer again is yes. There is an issue of impartiality here. He is very partial to making sure that General Flynn gets convicted and ends up going to jail. Once again, the DOJ said no bueno, we don't want to prosecute Flynn, let it go. And instead, he decided to become the prosecutor, stop acting as the judge, and just throw that air of impartiality out the window. He is very, very biased against General Flynn. General Flynn does not deserve this. He needs this case to be completely dismissed, as the DOJ has requested. And many people have said General Flynn needs to be pardoned. No way. He doesn't need to be pardoned, because then it's going to imply that there is some level of guilt. He is not guilty. He's done nothing wrong. And as we learned yesterday in the Sally Yates testimony, the outgoing administration wanted to go after him for a policy dispute, not for any crime. All right, and finally, President Trump is in the Cleveland area, I believe, today. He's in Ohio either way. But he had some type of a fundraiser or an event, and he happened to learn about my friend J.R. Majewski. Now, he actually retweeted J.R.'s image of his Trump sign lawn flag right here that J.R. has been working on all summer. I don't know if his shoes were blue before this, but they're certainly going to be blue now. Now, here is the original video. You can see that the O's have now been changed to the 17th letter of the alphabet. That is pretty awesome. So he got a call from the Secret Service. They did a background check on him, and they told him that President Trump wanted him in the motorcade. Now, I've been waiting to hear back from JR. I don't know if he actually had the opportunity to meet President Trump, but I believe this is him here with some Republican leaders in Ohio. Here he is. These are some sheriff's deputies from that area in Ohio, and I know that he's probably been hanging out with the Secret Service as well. JR, I'm so proud of you, buddy. This is really, really awesome. The fact that you were able to have this incredible impact, have the president see it, and have the opportunity to reach so many people with such a simple gesture. So I just wanted to say congratulations, JR. Oh, here's a picture of him with his Rottweiler. Oh, that's great. That's great. You know, I'm a dog lover, so that, man, I just love it. All right, sweet. All right, so yeah, great way to end the video. Proud of you, JR, and I hope that you got to meet the president. I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. All right, guys, that is definitely all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am Zak the Corruption Detector, and this was another edition of Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to thank everyone for watching today. If you have not subscribed yet, I urge you to please consider subscribing. There will be a couple of videos that pop up if you want to continue to watch. There's also some ways in the description of this video that you can follow me on other platforms. Please consider doing that as well. And if you want to support the program directly, there are means to do that below as well. Thank you all for your support over the last couple of years. Consider liking and sharing this video and help me get the real news to people who don't yet know they've been lied to.